How's it going, guys? Been a couple days since I've made it around. We finally got our passive tree information. The leagues have ended. Everything's moved over to standard leagues. And I've been playing with Atzuri's Rule on an Elementalist, seeing what I could do with that. But primary reason for today's video is going to be looking at passive trees prior and 3.16 on Caustic Arrow Raider and the cold damage over time Raider I league started with last league. So first thing I'm going to do here, like this is my existing Raider tree from Ultimatum League. For some reason, the medium socket cluster jewels are kind of worked, but they were changed in 3.15. So I don't know what's going on there, but it's losing some stuff. Costco damage fully decked out is sitting at 412,000 here in POB. Not save that. And then let's look at Cold Raider. Now, Cold Raider, this is level 100 tree that I finished the league with. Had to push up to Elements Overload, had to get Elemental Equilibrium, even to make the build work. Got the Watcher's Eye in here. Damage over time, all affected by Malevolence. And also, here, the Vortex dot DPS, total dot, including DPS, 407, 422. And that's with LE Equilibrium up and the whole bit. So then, like, okay, I'm going to import these into the newer POB. So this POB has been interesting to navigate. The amount of life I got on this character's up to 25, 26, which seems a little high. It's completely nixed all the cluster jewel stuff I had because I wasn't doing anything, but that's a lot of damage that this character has lost because that was sitting here in the cluster jewel. So the damage was about the same comparing it over, and I'll put a link to this PUB in the description. I'm honestly not too keen on Wind Dancer. Wind Dancer used to take less damage if you haven't been hit recently. Now you take more attack damage if you have been hit recently. So it's not quite as free of a node to take, Wind Dancer. But the big part of being Raider, especially last league, was you get the 50% chance to avoid elemental ailments, and that you can cap off by getting Crystal Skin and all of the nodes here. You have yourself 100% ailment immune. That part of Raider is not going away. All we're losing is the dodge, and we can still build into spell suppression, which is kind of built in around the tree. I can pinpoint that more on the other builds as I'm planning on doing more with that build. So, but what I've got here, like this is Caustic Arrow tree. I mean, those are some of the last nodes you'd take. Set up the best I felt like I could make it. Here it is, level 92 is what this tree would be in its current state. Now, if you were to get this full reel down here of thick skin, let's say I get all of this, that's 20% chance to avoid ailments, and you can take 2 of these nodes off. Chance to avoid being chilled, like any 2 of them can come off of here. You can still get the mastery. It's fine, but I think I'm gonna pull that off. Life seems okay. So the points that I'd have missing would probably just like be thrown into getting these cluster jewels and getting the damage back to where it was. What else? Let's look at the masteries I took here. Mastery I took on resistance and ailment protection. You can get corrupting blood cannot be inflicted on you from a mastery. I think that is fantastic. Okay, I've kind of fell in love with this set of nodes here. Increased flash charges gained. Life flash gain 1 charge every 3 seconds. That ups to 3 charges every 3 seconds. Increased flash charges gain does affect this number. At least it has proven to in the past. So your 25% increased flash charges gained in here. This one giving me a life. Propane chemistry giving me life flash charge 1 every 3 seconds. That's 4 every 3 seconds. 25% of that is 1. So I'm getting 5 life flash charges every 3 seconds with that. Flask mastery stuff. You can get utility flasks gain 1 charge every 3 seconds, but that's the only way you can get into it. So I'm not sure how useful that's going to be, but for really long boss fights, it could work. I got these 2 notes here because mana recovery is kind of an issue on this build specifically. So having the 10% increased life flask effect is pretty cool. I took the mastery here for 1% chaos damage over time multiplier per 4 chaos resistance. This character has 62 chaos res. We divide that by 4, that's like 15 chaos dot multi. For having a bunch of chaos res, and I could get more if I needed to through one with evil. I think this cluster one with evil is one of the most potentially useful in the passive tree, because there is a timeless jewel keystone that can convert half of your elemental damage taken into chaos damage. And that you would want max chaos res for that. And now there's a really good avenue on the tree to get that. You take this, you could even get an additional effective curses on you. There's 7% chaos res, so that's just a stupid amount of chaos res from that. But that is there. Up here, you atrophy chaos dot multi stuff. And I took the 17% chaos resistance here because I don't want to take increased damage when I've used the chaos skill, or lose 10% of life. That's a lot for how quickly the raider moves. I can take increased effective withered from the withering step, which is pretty nice. Affects the damage quite nicely there. Or you could take the additional dot multi off of taking the chaos res. And yeah, that doesn't affect the damage too terribly much, so it's probably better worth it to go with least effective withered. So then there's the damage over time cluster here, growth and decay. It's been given 5% to dot multi instead of the 12% increased damage over time. So I always avoided taking these 2 and always took the regen. Now there's some reason to take these nodes because they added quite a bit of damage. So that's there. 10 to damage over time multiplier if you've killed recently is the mastery I took on this. You get increased effective cruelty, which doesn't do anything. Duration of ailments, which is good for poison and ignite. Skill effect duration doesn't really matter. We want damage. Less damage taken from damage over time. Okay. Dot multi if you killed recently. It's not going to help against bosses, but for 1 passive point, like, that's there. Big. Have you killed recently? Gives another 14,000. It's like 5% damage. We're having that on there. That's really about it. It's all the masteries I took. You can get the 50 max life on the life wheel. I did find out, and I'll show you this on the other character, because I've been more investing into that character, because honestly, I don't know that I'd want to play Caustic Arrow without the dodge. Seems like it could be a little bit yikes. But the 50 base to max life adds quite a bit. For 1 passive point, it's definitely more than a 5% will do. So if you're cutting, or if you're needing to get an extra passive in here, adding that in there, fine. So I'll link The POB, but like I said, it's still kind of broken, at least for me. Um, heck, I even pulled out and put one of my other jewels in here just to try and make this a little bit more usable without the mediums, since the mediums weren't working. So yeah, there is that. There. Now let's look at the cold dot one. Let me save this how it is there. So now, the cold dot raider I'm a little more excited about, but this POB is also still kind of borked. So, what I've got here is level 95 build. That is taking passive points. I don't remember what I actually did. That's what it migrated in as. Probably should take that. So, the big deal with this character is we used to have to travel all the way up to get elemental overload, elemental equilibrium along the way. Now that step has been removed. So there's more passives to play with on this build than there previously were. Now, the big thing that's changing with cold dots has not been implemented into POB yet. Thing being, so it says I'm at 323,000 dot DPS on my vortex, which shouldn't be the case, right? Because they buff the numbers. So if I go back, save that to Dot Raider, because I have 407,000. That's with the elemental equilibrium, that's with elemental overload, all of that taken into account. So this is the number that we're trying to get to, essentially, and we're going to be able to blow it out of the water. So the Cold Dot Raider is going to be better than it was previously. That is because the skill gems are getting buffed, but that skill gem buff has not yet made its way into Path of Building. So I'm currently looking at it at level 20. Vortex now deals 2315 at gym level 20, previously 1456.9. So I'm getting a level 24, I think. So I dropped this to level 17, and this is giving me the base cold damage per second of the previously existing level 20 gym. So with a level 17 gym with my staff that's pretty busted, not gonna lie, plus 3 cold spell skill gems, T1 cold dot multi with cold damage. So with the staff, this is what we were looking at before, as far as the damage is going. So this was our level 20. And then I got it up to level 24 through other means. But at level 24, my base cold damage per second is not giving me 2315 on the gym. It's close. But it's going to affect with the scaling once the numbers go higher than 20. So at 20, if I'm getting 2315, at 24, I'm going to be getting a lot more. So what if I add 4 levels to this? This gets me closer to where I would expect to be, but I bet the scaling is better off of those gyms. So I'd be looking more around to this, in which case my dot DPS is better. It's mostly just because the updated vortex numbers have not gotten put into POB. That things are strange here. Another thing, Awaken Elemental Focus is getting +1 at level 5. Level 5 Awaken Elemental Focus is giving +1 to socketed elemental gems. That is +1 level to my Vortex. That's +1 level to my Vol Cold Snap. So, that's essentially, it's like, oh, let's pop another one on. So each of these levels is substantial. Pretty good stuff here. So I'll put this POB, and I disabled the aspect of the spider completely in this, because this was a really min-maxed little bit that I was doing here. So let's look at the masteries that I went with here. Same thing down here. I get my ailment immunity. Crushing blood cannot be inflicted on you. Don't have to worry about a jewel to get that. You can get that right into maps. Just not have to deal with that. And then so I grabbed 2 nodes into field medicine here. Flask Mastery, remove a random non-elemental ailment when you use a life flask. This gives me poison removal and bleeding removal that is not corrupting blood. So, on my life flask, just there. As well as giving me increased life recovery from flasks. Life flask, gain a charge when you hit an enemy no more than once each second. Cool, fantastic. So pushing across here through the quick step cluster, this is giving me an additional 12% chance to suppress spell damage. So the Raider down here is getting 40% chance to suppress spell damage. So that's 40% chance to take 50% less damage from spells. This can be raised to 100. Oh, I haven't been feeling good at all. But, onward. So, another thing, with the Cold Dot build, Avatar of the Veil, nearby enemies have fire, cold, and lightning exposure while you have phasing, applying -20 to those resistances. So originally I was thinking, okay, you would still want to take Elemental Equilibrium. This is applying a -25% exposure to the ailment, or the damage types that you did not hit with. So this is only giving you 5% more to your exposure, and it's limited. So as a Raider with the Cold Dot, you don't need it because Avatar of the Veil covers you there, as well as giving you the ailment immunity if you spec into Skin. We're losing some evasion, we're losing all of our dodge, but we still have all the speed from being Raider. We still get the permanent phasing, which will not be missed at all. The biggest thing I was doing here, because I wasn't able to reach the life values that I did on my other build. So I really tried to stretch for life where I could get it, and like full investment in the life flasks. So I have, you can see on this screen right here, I've gotten 3 flask masteries. Flask supply do have 10% increased effect. Utility flask charge, which I'm still not sure about. And then poison and bleed immunity on the life flask usage. Plus getting all the extra life recovery from flasks. The life recovery from flasks is getting buffed. So you're going to have insane life recovery off life flasks. With this setup. We're losing the blind. The accuracy reduction from Avatar of the Veil. And we're losing the dodge, so it's going to be easier to get hit. But part of the Cold Dot, part of this build, is that you're stacking so much increased effect of chill that you're slowing enemies so much that it's easier to manually dodge things, which is pretty fantastic. And now there's some use for this cold cluster down here. Cold exposure you inflict applies an extra -5 to cold resistance. That's making me passively deal -25 cold res to nearby enemies. And I get increased effect of cold ailments out of here, so I can get that mastery. Now, there is another cold cluster up here. This is called Season of Ice. I believe this is a new node up here. Cold Dot Multi, increased effect of chill on this. And here I have curses on enemies in your chilling areas have 15% increased effect. So that's going to be increased effect of my Frostbite, increased effect of my Despair, which is fantastic because double scaling those is huge. On Whispers of Doom, enemies you curse are hindered with -15% reduced movement speed. So I am using Stygian Vise here. In that, enemies hindered by you have 18% reduced life regeneration rate. So if I curse an enemy, they're now hindered, and they're also taking reduced life regeneration. One of the biggest differences between playing Cold Dot on a Raider and an Occultist is that Occultist has nearby enemies have 100% reduced life regeneration. So life regeneration does nothing. Enemies with lots of life regeneration hurt the raider more than they do the occultist. Well, that's what this jewel was for. This does have to be an item level 84 jewel to get that roll on there. Go back to this. Again, damage over time. If you killed recently, it is right there. Take the flask stuff. And here, on this life wheel, I took Vitality has 100% increased mana reservation efficiency. So that saves me 7% of my mana to run I added it on here. I just slapped it on. I slapped on a level 20 Vitality, which if I wasn't doing, I'd have 41% unreserved mana. I still have the aspect of the spider. If I can enable that aspect of the spider. But this is something you just get right off the start, of course. Like I could throw a blasphemy curse in here, potentially. But I did the same thing with Clarity up here. Clarity has 100% increased reservation mastery just by throwing these two nodes in here to grab Dynamo. So if I take that off, that's dropping me to 25. So if I was running Vitality and Clarity at level 20 with Malevolence, with no spect in, which is it's also right here, made a reservation efficiency, I can slap this in. Vitality costs way less, Clarity costs way less, and then boom, I get a lot more life. I don't have to really go out of my way to really get that, although I could probably do better by just doing this. Probably it's about the same for 3 points. Increases the effect of your auras too. So that's there. Here I grabbed 15% to all elemental resistances. In here, this is giving me a big increased effective chill. That's why I like Ash, Frost, and Storm. So I still went up here to grab it. And another big thing, Iron Will. There's no point not to take it. Whatever strength you have, giving you increased spell damage, there's no reason, if you're in this area using a spell build, to not take Iron Will. Iron Grip is right here. If you're playing a projectile build, there's no reason not to take this. So I do. So now this is a level 95 build. Damage is less, but it's going to be higher than it was before once the correct things get in. For 5 points, I can go over here to get Fingers of Frost. This is giving me a bunch increased chill effect. All it's really giving me, it's giving me another cold mastery that I don't need any of these. Freeze duration on enemies is cool. Frenzy charge on shatter, which I'm not doing. Enemies become chilled as they unfreeze. But I have no guaranteed source of freeze on this build. Not being a cultist. Those aren't really useful either. So, what else can we do here with 5 points? Probably just like throw it into life. Grab the chaos resistance. Take an extra chaos resistance here. And the big reason I went with the resistances here, because without it, I was uncapped on lightning. I could get 18 lightning resistance by throwing this in here. But I could also get all the rest right there. Having a 15 all res available at any elemental wheel is pretty cool. But so these are the two builds that I'm kind of most known for. Most people might be looking for out of me. So I will give you these skill trees. But things are gonna be wonky for everybody. I absolutely hate that these nodes right here lost their life. These two nodes got life. There's life on this node over here with the chances of suppress spell damage. Oh yeah, spell damage suppression. Right here, Mage Bane. I can nix the amount dexterity is giving me for evasion. It lowers my evasion chance currently from 32 to 30. So I'm not really scaling evasion very well. But this will give me a 15% spell suppression by just throwing that on. This wheel right here, Instinct. 4% chance to suppress spell damage. Suppress spell damage. Suppress spell damage. Now I'm 6% overcapped. Guaranteed 50% less damage from spells. That is mainly because I went across this. I don't need any of these points in here. Raider, I have the speed. I still have 71%. With Magebane. So spell suppression is achievable without gear investment on a Raider with Quartz Infusion. So since we're going to be like, well, and also like the Quartz Flask hasn't been updated either. Quartz Flask is going to give spell suppression during Flask effects rather than attack and spell dodge. So no matter, like, big warning to you out there, no matter whose path of building you're looking at for Scourge League, take it with a grain of salt. There's a lot in here still missing. I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody here. I'm just trying to give you caution. Because there's things still missing. Just because they think something's going to work, like, investigate it, use your brain, try and figure out things. I'm honestly, before this league, I'm not making any theoretical path of buildings. I know how both of these builds work inside and out. I messed something up here. Yeah, grab these. So yeah, I'm gonna ship this one like it is. Like I said, there's more options. But I don't think anybody's path of building is going to be what it is once the league starts. So yeah, that's going to be this one for me. If you're looking for these path of buildings, there they are. They're in the video description. This is something I was just experimenting with. I'm probably league starting Cold Dot, unless it is desired of me to play a shock stacking, exposure stacking character, which this would be, because with Elementalist, I'll just throw this out there. Mastermind of Discord, exposure you inflict applies an extra -25 to those resistances. So if I path down here to the bottom, you get the newly located Elemental Equilibrium. I'm going to be applying -50 to hold resistance on hit with both the Storm Call and the Flame Blast off of Adziri's Rule. So, and like I've already like guaranteed, like my passive tree on this has it. Like I'm scaling shock effect so that this shocks pretty hard. But passive tree's up in the air on that as well. Yeah. I'm probably going back to bed. I've been sleeping for like 24 straight hours. Trying to overcome a cold or something. But there we go. Hope you enjoy. There's some POVs. I'll be back with maybe leveling or something. I don't know. Cheers.